All right, we're going to deep dive into one particularly important aspect of lowering your risk of a heart attack or a stroke and cardiovascular disease, particularly peripheral arterial disease, carotid disease. Obviously, that can result in the stroke, blockage of the coronary arteries, heart attack, for which in 1/3 of cases, the first sign is sudden death. So we're going to step by step and give you specific numbers in terms of how to lower your lipid risk. I don't want to use the word cholesterol because technically it is really LDL particle concentration measured with a test called apoB. That is the most important. And that you also need, and write this down, take notes, you need to know your lipoprotein little a level, because that is one form of LDL particle that you will not get by just checking the best test overall for LDL particle concentration, which is called apoB, apoB, or apolipoprotein B. Certain fraction of apoB, certain fraction of LDL particles, I should say, have an extra chain on the side that makes them particularly toxic, particularly prone to developing blood clot, to causing the body to develop blood clots and even aortic stenosis. I have a very high level of this lipoprotein little a. Get that tested once in a lifetime. You need to know whether it is elevated. If you're checking it in terms of mass, it's going to be 30 milligram per deciliter, and then particularly very high if it's over 50 milligram per deciliter. And if it is in the nanomoles per liter category, it will be high if higher than 75 nanomoles per liter, or like myself, very high if over 125 nanomoles per liter. Mine is 127, yet I still have a 0 coronary artery calcium score, a carotid intima-medial thickness, a special ultrasound for the neck that has below the 25th percentile, basically estimating me at over 10 years younger than my biological age, which is 85. Just kidding, I'm just kidding. I'll be 56 actually though, and feeling pretty darn amazing considering my crap genetics. And I want to give you this gift. And it's not just me, it's the thousands of patients I've taken care of over tens of thousands of hours of leading intensive lifestyle and nutrition intervention programs, from the likes of the Pritikin Longevity Center in the south to the Henry Ford Health System in the north, and a big system coming up soon that I cannot say just yet, but it's in a state nearby Michigan. But anyway, that being said, now that you know, you have to know your LP(a), because that's going to, LP(a) is just a term I used to shorten lipoprotein(a). LP(a) is another way of saying lipoprotein(a). You need to know that number once in a lifetime, maybe twice in a woman if you check before menopause and then after, because lowering estrogen raises this toxic form of LDL significantly in some women. So you really will want to check that maybe twice. And you do want to tell first-degree family members if you have an elevated level, which 1 in 5 on average do, and 1 in 3 African Americans, and less than 1% of the population has even been tested. If you have a family history of early cardiovascular disease and you don't know your lipoprotein(a), you need to get to ask your doctor. And if your doctor won't check, shame on them, and find a different doctor that will. If you have to even order it yourself, but you need to take some responsibility. Although I will say I am a multiple board certified physician, a past president of the National Board of Physician and Nutrition Specialists, obviously board certified the American Board of Internal Medicine. I'm a question writer for the American Board of Internal Medicine, and of course I'm board certified in lifestyle medicine as well. And I'm a fellow of the American College of Physicians, if you want to know some of my background and credibility here. So here, let's delve into how to drop your apoB, which you'll definitely want to do if your lipoprotein(a) is elevated, but even if not, to lower your not just short-term 5-10 year risk of cardiovascular disease events, heart attack, stroke, but your lifetime risk, because you really want to get that apoB under 100 if you don't have any disease and you're younger, ideally, okay? Because some labs will say less than 130. Not for lifetime risk, no way. Primary prevention, meaning you don't have any history, family history, your lipoprotein(a) level is low, would still say, man, if we can get it down to under 100 naturally, great. Now mine is 70, naturally, no medication. So I'm not necessarily pushing you that hard. And I'm older, it should be easier in a younger person. So trust me, this stuff is doable now. Everyone's got different genetics. 1 in 500 have a form of familial hypercholesterolemia, that you will require lifestyle and medication. But for most people, and everyone really, how much of the effect you get from this is a different story, but most people are going to get a particularly profound effect. Now listen up. The first thing you need to do is to drop that apoB, and you'll need to have it less than 80 if you've got significant risk and you haven't had an event. And if you have had an event, you're going to want to probably get that apoB around 60 or less, okay? If you listen to discussions by uber experts like Tom Dayspring, now that's going to be something that will require some medication, but don't you want to be on the lowest effective dose to get there? Because if you don't follow these lifestyle recommendations, really, almost assuredly, you're going to have to be on a higher dose and multiple maybe medications to achieve this. I know there's a lot of controversy. You can debate it all you want, do whatever you like. You can make whatever comment you like, but I'm telling you, drop your saturated fat. Drop your saturated fat down into the level of single digits on as many days as reasonably possible. Now, I'm going to tell you the sources of saturated fat in a minute. And trust me, just try and then see how much you're at baseline. If you want to know the truth, you're going to need to get a food logging app for this. You got to get a reliable one. And as of now, until the Flex 5 digital platform comes out, I would say that Lose It is the best. Now, I know Lose It sounds like a weight loss app. It's got very good comprehensive tracking of all you need to know in nutrition. And while it's not perfect, the perfect isn't even out yet. It will be. Flex 5 will be. But Lose It, to me, is the best that you can do. Track, use the barcode. It's got great database. Track and find out where your baseline is. And when you enter something, make sure it's not missing data for saturated fat or sodium or anything else. You can click the verified only toggle button when you see the database to make sure that you're getting only choices that have all the data. Now, it doesn't mean there isn't a bunch of great stuff when you don't have the verified only toggle on, but it's a little bit more reliable. And so ultimately, I want you to be able to track, make sure that when you're entering something, it has not only saturated fat, but everything in there, because we're going to get to fiber and we're going to get to dietary cholesterol too. And I'll give you a little side. I'm going to be interviewing a world authority on dietary cholesterol, Dr. David Spence, Professor David Spence, University of Toronto, and uber expert, published hundreds of times on the effects of dietary cholesterol on the risk of total plaque burden, particularly stroke, but even heart attack risk. Kudos to Dr. Spence. We'll be talking to him on the 23rd, and I'll post that as soon as I can after recording that interview. Saturated fat less than 10 grams per day. Look up highest sources of saturated fat in America. The CDC whatever you think of the CDC, I hear you, okay? But when it comes down to nutrition, World Health Organization, CDC, NIH still got good stuff, okay? That's an exception area. I don't want to get into the rest. I understand what you're talking about, but just hear me out. The biggest source of saturated fat in the United States are going to be animal sources like cheese, fatty red meat, okay? And there are some vegan sources. Sorry, coconut oil, it does raise LDL. I know you've heard a bunch of medium chain triglycerides and antimicrobial properties and blah, blah, blah. What Blue Zone, what longevity society do you know that it has a high intake of saturated fat or coconut oil? Doesn't exist. It doesn't mean that there aren't some societies like the Polynesian, group that they do everything else right and they have coconut oil. Okay, fine. I mean, look, of course, but that's not what we're in America. We're not in America where we're doing everything so great. Drop saturated fat. I don't care if it's palm oil, coconut oil, cheese, saturated fat from other forms of dairy, fatty red meat, dairy. When I say dairy, butter, even enough oils like olive oil, which tends to be low in saturated fat. Excuse me. I'm gonna grab some olive oil here. I'm not saying I don't do it, right? Shredded wheat there, but you're talking about there is 2 grams of saturated fat in a tablespoon. So 2 tablespoons, and you're up to 4, which is basically half your daily amount. Just watch that saturated fat. Why? Each one of these, I want to give you a why. Saturated fat inhibits the liver's ability to clear the blood of cholesterol. It causes a reduction in the receptors on the surface of the hepatocytes, the cells that make up the liver, that grab cholesterol from the bloodstream and that make it into bile, by the way. And then bile, basically, you poop out your cholesterol. It's digestive juice, 2/3 of it is cholesterol. And I know because you were just wondering today, we're going to watch Dr. Tom and learn. Do we sweat out our cholesterol? Do we breathe out our cholesterol? Right? Do we pee it out? Sweat, breathe, pee, no poop. you poop out your cholesterol. You want that to be higher fecal fraction of cholesterol, lower your saturated fat, open the door for the exit to get it out. Number 2, got to talk about dietary cholesterol. Sorry. Is it as big of a player as saturated fat? No, but when you combine something high in cholesterol with any saturated fat, you are going to really rev up your LDL particle number, which is measured by, again, apoB, which we're trying to get into the double digits, and whether it's less than 80 or less than 100 or less than 80 or less than 60 depends on your baseline risk. If you're young and you have no history, and just get it as low as you can, and preferably it'll be under 100. Again, mine is 70. No drug therapy. Dietary cholesterol, tracking on lose it, a tough one. I would theoretically like to get you under, people under 100 milligrams per day. I know that's tough. America's averaging over 300 milligrams per day. There's about 200 milligrams just in an egg yolk. No, egg yolks are not great sources for nutrition. There's nothing in an egg yolk you can't get from the plants from which the pasture-raised egg got it in the first place, minus the calories and concentrated cholesterol, and potentially other compounds that we're learning about that interact with the microbiome that can be toxic and independently related to cardiovascular risk, separate from LDL. That was in a great paper that Dr. Spence wrote. But particularly, it's a very concentrated source of cholesterol. So, when kids are around, I have pasture-raised eggs too, once in a while. I'm not, verboten, never have even a molecule of egg yolk. If I scoop out an egg yolk in a Panera or even Starbucks, I don't go, oh my gosh, there's a molecule of egg yolk in there. But you want to drop your dietary cholesterol, certainly under 200 milligrams. That's definitely doable, okay? If you're really into the prevention, you want to reduce your risk substantially, I would say, look, many days is possible. And all this is, by the way, on average. We're not worried about every single day meeting these guidelines. It's to say 335, 345 days out of the year. Just don't take all 20, 30 days off in a row, okay? Because we all have to have a spice of life. Major sources, really, cholesterol, egg yolks, big one. Shrimp. And then, of course, it's going to add up in flesh. Now, fin fish tends to have less cholesterol per gram of protein. So if you're looking at sources, you're going to have typically a little less in lean poultry than you will in red meat, and you're going to have a little less in fin fish than you're going to have in poultry. And then there's some in the mollusk world, or even the shellfish world, that are low, but not shrimp. Shrimp is going to be pretty high, and doesn't mean don't eat it. It just means, remember, this is about on average. So I'd say over a week, the average is I'm giving you 10 or less grams of saturated fat per day, less than 200, preferably even less than 100. Pick 150 if you want anything of dietary cholesterol per day, as low as you can reasonably get that. And you're going to really, at the 100 mark, you can fit in 3-4 ounces of flesh. But if you want more animal protein, there are animal sources of protein that don't have any, or almost any. There's one that doesn't have any saturated fat or cholesterol. That's egg whites, and that's what Jack LaLanne ate regularly. Guy lived to be 90, almost 97, working out to the day before he died, even though his father died of a massive heart attack in his 50s, and Jack wasn't endowed with great genes. Remember that genetics loads the gun, but lifestyle pulls the trigger. Greek yogurts too, low fat or fat free. They have very little cholesterol, teeny weeny bit, and either very low if it's low fat Greek yogurt, or none if it's fat-free Greek yogurt. So those two sources, egg whites and leaner, particularly protein-rich Greek yogurts, have almost no cholesterol or saturated fat in the low fat and fat-free, and then no cholesterol or saturated fat in the egg whites, okay? Fish is the flesh of choice, all that business. So we got saturated fat less than 10 grams per day, or 10 or less grams per day, if you will, splitting hairs there. And then less than 200 milligrams on dietary cholesterol if you can get substantially under that, and even around 100. Or if you're going to go plant purist or vegetarian in the sense of only the leaner, lower saturated fat dairies, not cheese. Cheese is going to be concentrated calories, concentrated saturated fat, and not so much cholesterol. That's not usually an issue with cheese, but it's concentrated calories, concentrated saturated fat, and usually concentrated salt, with the exception of Swiss cheese. So if you're going to say, what Swiss, if you're a non-negotiable cheeseaholic, I'm board certified recovering cheeseaholic. I would say, a light or low-fat Swiss cheese, which could at least cut the saturated fat, and it doesn't have nearly as much sodium as most cheeses. Even if you see cheese listed Subway, you'll see that Swiss cheese has actually 1/3 of the amount of sodium as the next lowest So that being said, not pushing Swiss cheese because of the saturated fat issue, but I want to be honest with you on everything. Next is fiber. Get that fiber up there, man. Get that fiber up there. Give me some fiber, will ya? Give me some garbanzo beans, man. Give me some beans. Okay, I don't care which beans you pick. Love some beans and lentils, man. Okay, let me get you some lentils. Okay, want some beans and lentils. Okay, you can soak these overnight, and you pour the water out to get rid of the lectin, and then of course you boil them, and then you're gonna, rinse that off, and that's even more. So don't worry about the lectin. Sorry, Dr. Grundy, but you have some phenomenal, amazingly. I mean, look at that fiber there. Look at that fiber. 9 grams. Oh my gosh. Now we consider 3 grams per every 100 calories as excellent. This is triple that. And I mean 2 grams for every 100 calories is very good. Excellent is 3. And this has 9 grams of fiber for every 100 calories. Oh my Lord. How about these lentils? Okay, lentils. But boom, 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 7, right? All your legumes, beans, lentils, peas. This is at 7 right there. See that? Right there and then up there. What was that? Anyway, so we have ourselves some really, really great fiber. If you look at something like shredded wheat, which isn't so much the cholesterol absorbing type of insoluble fiber, but nevertheless, all fiber is good. You're going to want to have a mix anyway. So 8 grams of fiber for 200 calories now. So that's 4 grams for every 100, and that's still really good. So beans, lentils, peas, legumes beat the grains, right? Grains, this is farro. So I'm so far away from you. We have here 180 calories, okay? And it's got only 3 grams of fiber. Now, I'm not gonna throw away whole grains, intact whole grain as it is. You can even see through here, it meets that criteria, and an intact whole grain, just like an intact lentil though, right? But you won't absorb all the calories. You tend to only absorb maybe about 80%. At least if you look at almond studies, you absorb about 75% of the calories on the label, as opposed to almond butter, which you absorb almost all of it. So the more intact a plant is, the harder it is for our digestive enzymes to get into all the nooks and crannies, versus if it's pulverized into dust, let's say, Cheerios or pasta, whole wheat pasta. Those are still whole, but you pulverize it, so you've lost some of the ability of malabsorbing, if you will, or not absorbing all the calories, because calories count, but they only count if you absorb them. So fiber, how high? Get that fiber. If you're tracking on Lose It, you'll want to hit a level of at least 2 grams for every 100 calories overall. So you're gonna have some foods, if you're doing a flexitarian approach, where there's no fiber, because no fiber in any animal foods, and certainly none that count. I mean, if they put processed added fiber into ice cream, don't count it. That's not evidence-based fiber. Really, I mean, it's got a little bit of evidence because the FDA requires a little bit of health benefit, but the mass majority of the benefit we see in data on fiber is natural fiber in foods, preferably intact, meaning, something like even this is more intact, not as intact as steel cut oats, but these old-fashioned oats, at least I can show you something that you can see, the flakies here, right? But if you go to Cheerios, that's just all been pulverized into dust. And I don't want to beat up on Cheerios too much. I mean, at least it's got the whole grain somewhere in there. It's not Rice Krispies, but nevertheless, there's fiber and there's fiber. More intact, the better. 2 grams every 100 calories. You pull that trifecta off, and then if there's excess weight, these kind of foods tend to also be weight loss friendly, but we haven't really covered weight loss here. But since that is a part potentially, although it has to be significant, I want to also just use fruit for 2 reasons. Number one, we're going to get to discuss the issue of calorie density, and then we'll also demystify, and I'll accentuate my fruit video in that foods that have high water content, they're still solid though, right? Like if I threw this at you, man, I mean, you could sue me. This is ready to eat, so it's not too soft. Actually, it's still pretty hard, but it's ready to eat nevertheless. But it's hard. It's 90% water though, close to 90%. So it's not really concentrated in sugar at all. It's actually sugar dilute to get you full on way less sugar than could be a risk. Potentially actually healthy, because people don't know this, right? Because small amounts of fructose actually help insulin sensitivity. It's overload that's the problem. And these type of sweets help you reduce carbohydrate intake because they have on average, whole fruit on average, 250 calories a pound. Let's say even 300 calories a pound. You know how many pounds of food a human eats per day on average in a free living environment? It's close to about 3, maybe 4. So let's say we went on the high end and said 300 calories per pound, and you need 4 pounds of food a day to feel full. Let's just even throw it at 5 pounds, and then you're at 300 calories on average per whole fruit. 5 pounds, it's only 1,500 calories. That is like less than what they feed people in a prison camp, okay, that they're torturing people. So don't worry about whole fruit, but that's not the only food high in water. Vegetables high in water, foods you cook in water, hello, right? So if you're looking at a label, in general, it's not as easy to do this because unfortunately Lose It doesn't track all the food weights. They really should. But you're looking generally for foods that ultimately have the calories equal to or lower. And this is really for overall food choices on average because not every food is going to meet this criteria. But if you want to feel full on fewer calories, you want calories that are lower than the cooked serving size. Now this says 35 grams here. So oh my gosh, the calories are triple the serving size. Lentils are full of calories, but you don't eat them dry. You cook them. When you cook them, they tend to be triple the weight dry. They absorb double their amount of weight in water. So whether it's cooked grains, the dry weight will triple. So this weight here is 40 grams will be 120. So not so high. 150 is a little higher than the final cooked weight of 120. And oats actually can absorb a little extra water. So they say maybe 3.5 times their amount on the label versus the cooked. So this might be 150 to 150. That's why when I go to Starbucks and I order oatmeal there, I'll actually say, make it soupy, add some extra water, or even if it's steamed non-fat milk, I'll say make it soupy so it absorbs extra water. Let's have a quiz. What will be the final cooked weight of this farro? Let's see here. This is farro. It's too close though. It's farro, but it's too close, so you can't really see the number. Well, I'm going to tell you what it is. It's 45 dry. So cooked, triple that. 135 grams. So 135 grams to 180 calories. It's at least the calories aren't double the serving size, but they're not less. So maybe farro, you should put in with some vegetables, and so you volumize it with foods that are really low. I mean, vegetables have sometimes even less than half a calorie per gram. So you have 100 grams of leafy greens, and they have less than 50 calories because they're full of water. That's the way that it is. Then the other place that you get water content is in animals. If we were to look at these clams here, which are something my daughter wanted, but still technically we've got animal food here. So if you take a look at the serving size, it is 142, okay, for 100 calories. Now protein has 4 calories per gram. So shouldn't, for 142 grams, have like 560 calories, but it's only got 100 calories. Why? Want to see how much water is in this? Do this with any food. There's a little trick for you. See how calorie concentrated it is. You hope that it has a lot of water left. For most, not all foods. Yeah, everybody needs a little crunch, a little dry food, but you just want to be careful. So let's subtract out all the weight of calories of those 142 grams right there. Let's start with the protein, which is at 19 grams. Let's round it up to 20, and we'll actually make this simple. We'll round down the serving size to 140 grams, and the protein to 20. So now we're down to 140 minus 20 is 120 grams. Carbohydrate 3, so that's down to 117 grams, and then 1 gram of fat is 116 grams. Now, even if we took the water out, there's 116 grams left. Let's say we drain the water, right? There's still going to be inside the actual flesh 90 grams of water. It's obviously not all calories. So you can do that here with some chickpeas here that are already cooked because they're in a can. No salt added, of course. And let's just say we took off the 30 grams from it because they include the water content. So let's say it's 100 grams. So 100 grams of 120, not bad. Calories aren't that much higher, but the calories are coming from great sources. You've got protein and fiber that's really high, it's great. But let's just subtract out from the 100 grams the 2 grams of fat, so that's 98 grams, 19 grams of carbohydrate, which is going to be 80 or 79 grams, and then 6 grams of protein, and that's 73. So out of the 100 grams, 73 grams are water, intrinsic inside the food, right? It's got to be in the food. You can't like drink water with raisins and pray they turn back into grapes, okay? As I say often. So dried fruit has a lot of redeeming qualities. The fiber's still there, potassium for blood pressure is still there, like often some magnesium. You still have the alkaline residues that come with fruits and vegetables that prevent bone loss and prevent kidney stones, antioxidants. But when it comes to the calories, they're calorie concentrated. And we're talking here about lowering further our LDL particle concentration by weight loss if we have extra weight. And we don't want to do that by starving. Feeling full on fewer calories is the smarter way to go. Then recheck hopefully you'll have a baseline to know where you're starting in terms of your apoB. apoB is covered by insurance. It's, just doctor has to know how to code for, presuming you have a cholesterol issue, or they'll just code for high cholesterol or for cholesterol, and that is E78. E78 point, and it depends, but I'm 90% sure you can Google it, ICD-10 for elevated cholesterol, and the number will be there for you. I think it's E78, and then there's E78.2 is a commonly used one. But anyway, if they code it correctly, then the apoB will be covered, and we'll see how that is before and after. Now, if you want to just wait till after, that's fine, because at the end of the day, who cares? It's just where you end up landing. Anyway, you can always guess what it was before. But some people absorb more dietary cholesterol than others, and I kind of prefer you have a baseline. There you go. Okay. That was, I hope, I know that was a little bit long, and I hope you took some notes, but there's 20, coming up on 27 minutes that I hope ultimately could save lives. It's a very small investment for the benefits. I go into more detail in the master class, and there's 29 other lessons besides saturated fat and cholesterol. So this wasn't as good as that. We've got the slides, we've got all the everything written down for you. You get to print out the notes. There's concept checks, quizzes, if you will, recipes, everything. But I want to give you a flavor of that here. If you want to join the master class, Total Metabolic Health, become a master, if you will, a health and well-being, a lifestyle warrior, learning the mixed martial artistry of well-being. Join the master class. Just Google the Flex 5 lifestyle. No space between the X and the 5, by the way, just 5 contiguous characters. The Flex 5 lifestyle will be number 1 on Google. Boom, that will be the information page. And I can post a link to it in the description. There you go. Okay, take care. And by the way, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and whatever you want to press. If you're watching this on somewhere else other than YouTube, I think there's other options. You can press hate or love or laugh or whatever. Make a comment, share, subscribe, whatever channel you're listening is on. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. But I love you all, and I hope that was helpful. Take care. Dr. Tom signing out.